At Altamimi & Company, we believe we should be ahead of the curve and participate in building a high-standard mediation sector in the UAE and the region, to be prepared for all the opportunities which will be afforded by the new legislation, the new mediation legislation, and the UAE potentially joining the Singapore Convention, which is in line with the vision of the government and with the firm's innovative approach and our commitment to developing the legal profession in the UAE and the region. My name is Christine Maksoud, and I would like to introduce my colleague Ahmed Saleh. Ahmed is our partner and head of innovation, patent and industrial property. Both Ahmed and I are trained mediators, and this is the first episode in a series of videos and interviews which we will be conducting with key players in the legal community to cover all the latest updates in the mediation sector and to talk about all the initiatives which are led by the private and the public sectors. Mediation is what we call an interest-based negotiation process through which the mediator will help the parties to find common interest and to also solve the dispute amicably and to reach a final settlement. In a mediation process, the parties could have a substantial control over the process, starting from the choice of the mediator to the timing, the duration, the participants to such mediation, and to the outcome specifically. And it's known that people are usually more satisfied and happy with solutions that they had a hand in creating rather than solutions that were imposed on them by a decision maker. And because of that, the mediation will give the opportunity to the parties to come up with innovative and out-of-the-box solutions that suits their situation and is customized to their situation, regardless whether their evidence or their legal position is weak or strong. A mediation has been receiving a widespread attention from the legal circles in the UAE after the issuance of the monumental legislation, the mediation law, Federal Law number 6 of 2021. This law has addressed one of the main issues, which was probably preventing the success of mediation in the past, which is the without prejudice communication. It also addresses the judicial and the non-judicial mediation. This law needs still to be supplemented and complemented with other legislations, such as regulating the criteria for the mediators to be listed in the mediators list, the criteria and the requirements for licensing mediation centers and foreign mediation centers in the UAE, and the most important piece of legislation, which is also vital for building the trust in the mediators and the mediation process, which is the professional code of conduct for mediators. Mediation has proven to be an effective way for resolving international disputes. The UN Convention for recognition of the International Settlement Agreement resulting from mediation, or what we call the Singapore Convention, was paramount in bringing forward mediation into the international presence. This convention has actually addressed a specific need or lack of process for enforcing settlement agreements. Before this convention, settlement agreements were enforced like any other contract. So, which means if there is an international dispute, the parties needed to go to court and initiate legal proceedings in order to enforce an agreement in which a party has defaulted. After the convention, if you are party to the convention, you would be able to go to court and directly apply for enforcement of a settlement agreement. Similar to the New York Convention for Arbitral Awards, the Singapore Convention will help promote mediation as an international dispute resolution mechanism. In the Middle East so far, Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Jordan have ratified this convention, and the UAE is about to ratify it anytime soon. which we think it will definitely strengthen the position of the UAE as a hub for international trade. So Ahmed, when do you think a party should opt for mediation?
Thank you very much, Christine. Actually, it is on a case-by-case basis. I think that, yes, mediation is an alternative mean for dispute resolution. However, the opting for mediation rather than another dispute resolution mean shouldn't be taken lightly and should be taken in a very strategic way. And actually, it's highly recommended for parties in a dispute to seek the advice of their counsels on whether mediation is something which would benefit them at the end of the day if they decide to go down that route, or if it's not. And timing is very important as well. If mediation is ultimately an interesting and beneficial route for them in that specific case, a decision has to be made when to opt for mediation. Is it at the outset of a litigation proceeding, for example? Is it after, meanwhile? And of course, that would depend a lot on the strategy in the case and on the local procedures, taken into consideration the local procedures as well as the councils would advise based on the local practice.
And the business repercussions as well.
Definitely. This strategic decision would need to take into consideration different factors. One of them is the nature of the litigation, the position of the parties, what the parties, the balance of powers between the parties, for example, the type of information that, for example, in a normal litigation case will need to be disclosed between the parties, for example, and whether that information is confidential in nature. If it's highly confidential in nature, mediation maybe would provide, a nice mean to resolve a dispute without disclosing too much information, for example. The ongoing relationship between the party, the type of the relation between the party, whether there is an interest in preserving this relationship between the parties is extremely important to take it into consideration. If there is an interest to preserve the relationship between the parties, definitely the way mediation would be an interesting route to resolve a dispute if possible without harming too much the relationship. On the contrary, if the mediator can help in rebuilding this relationship, this would be, of course, ideal in the situation. Definitely, there are other factors to be taken into consideration in making this decision to opt for mediation, including, for example, the technicalities in the case. If the case is, for example, technology related or innovation related, and there's still ambiguity with respect, to the application of certain laws to specific concepts, for example, it's something maybe which, would weight in benefit of an alternative dispute resolution such as mediation, where the parties can go and select an expert in the field, a technical expert in the field, one or two or more, to help them, in resolving this dispute amicably, and also in choosing or, having more control over the solutions in the case. Another thing which would also weight and benefit maybe of mediation, and depending on not only the position of the parties but the industry in which they are in and their situation in the market. If, for example, a party is, is after an adverse party for a dominant position in the market, for example, in terms, let's say, of patent monopoly, for example, over a technology. And whether that's something which would be beneficial to take through a mediation mean is questionable. If that party has a very strong patent, for example, and is looking to have a domination in the market, and they are not interested, for example, in collaborating with the other party for future business aspects, and there's no interest in having a relationship with that party. So in that case, would mediation be an ideal mean to resolve the issue? That's questionable. However, if the parties in question, they are in the market and they do have complementarity in a certain way in doing business together, and they wish to resolve that dispute, but as well there are other angles they can explore to add into that pie of business interest between them and make it bigger before they come and settle and split it at the end of the day. This is an ideal situation where two parties would find a real interest in resorting to mediation. The mediator, an expert mediator, will help them to speak, first of all, if he's technically savvy in their area, to speak their business language and understand their technical issues and business issues, and look beyond the specific legal issue in question, and through some confidential meetings he can have with both parties, actually, where both parties can have the comfort of disclosing some confidential information to him separately without fear of that information being shared, to the other parties. And that mediator can look into enlarging the business interest pie between them first, and then agreeing on the split. So that, I think, is an ideal situation where mediation can play a very creative and innovative role.
Correct.
In coming to a business deal between the parties.
And let's admit it, the issue is not the actual legal issue. It's actually the business repercussion of a legal issue. The parties usually do not really care about what's the legal position as much as the business repercussion of such legal position.
Definitely, absolutely. And this is actually, as the business mindset is, they want to do business, they want to make money, they want to work together.
They don't want to win an argument.
They don't want to, business people are very business oriented, and they want, at the end of the day, to make money. This is so if the process is going to help them to make this happen, definitely they will, accept to resort to this alternative dispute resolution which is mediation. If it doesn't help their mean to get to that outcome, no, that means it's not strategically wise to go into that route. And I think here the council, the parties' councils in the beginning, or the dispute resolution council, can really help them to make that decision.
Correct.
And can help them to guide them through the mediation process. And mediation, in my opinion, is best adopted when the parties are also represented by councils.
Correct.
So each one would come with their counsel. They would have access, to a legal advice during the mediation process. The councils decide with the parties on how they want to drive the mediation process. They make sure that all is in order, that whatever they want to achieve in terms of strategy is achieved. And the parties there, as business people, of course, they are there as well to work with their councils to come out to a business, desired a business outcome at the end of the day.
Since you said, which is perfectly accurate, you said it's a business and strategic decision. So what other industries that could benefit from mediation? So
as I mentioned, Christine, what I found very fascinating, honestly, about mediator is, I'm a patent attorney, and I find that there are a lot of common characteristics between a mediator jobs and patent attorney job. As a patent attorney, when I sit with an inventor, for example, and they come up with an invention, so I have to look beyond what they've put on paper as a creation and try to enlarge the scope of the invention, the spirit of that invention, to try to capture the widest scope of protection possible. And sometimes we come up with something which the inventor is even surprised with. Wow, how did you do that? We look at the issue from different angles, different aspects, and the different ways of doing things, and we put it all within the scope of the invention, if we can, to protect it. And as a mediator as well, it's the role a mediator can play in creating innovative solution. okay, is substantial, and that's why I find the mediator's role in resolving conflicts is extremely important when it's done in that manner, when it's done with the spirit of looking at the issue as legal issue at stake, not stopping there, looking beyond of that, trying to see the issue between the parties from all angles, trying to see where are the business interests between the parties from all angles, coming with something, a kind of, a business, a collaboration pie between the parties beyond the specific legal issue they came to see him for initially, and with the consent of both parties, proposing that to them and trying to find business collaboration between them, all in resolving the initial legal issue they've came in for. That's a process which takes creativity and innovation.
Correct.
As a mindset to come up with such a solution. And this is why I find there's big potential for mediation in this country. And because in this country, in the United Arab Emirates, we've been acquainted to the leadership mindset and driving the country in an innovative and a creative manner, always going beyond the traditional ways of doing things. And because in the UAE, our leadership is working very hard to make the UAE and the people of the United Arab Emirates the happiest people on earth. So they want these people to be happy, meaning that there is a big focus and spirit within the country to help the people in the United Arab Emirates resolve their disputes and according to the best means possible, and giving them all the mediums possible and options possible for them to resolve their issues in the way they find convenient for them, and which would contribute to their well-being and happiness.
Yeah. Speaking of well-being and happiness, don't you agree with me that also the sector of non-profit, for example, charities, non-profit organizations, whether public or private, could really benefit from this section?
That's a very good point, by the way, Christine, and spot on. I believe that if I'm a donator to an NGO, for example, and I make a donation of money every year to that organization, honestly, I'm doing that for the specific cause that NGO is leading on and driving. And I wouldn't want to see my money being spent on huge litigation conflict. And so I would want, to see my money being used wisely. Yes, I accept the fact that this money being used to resolve certain conflicts for the cause of that NGO if it makes them advance, but in the most cost efficient. And yes, I see that mediation, as an amicable, medium to resolve conflicts between parties, and it is within the spirit of NGOs and charity organizations, a humanitarian aspect behind these organizations. No, I find mediation would be a great medium, I think, which would be highly beneficial as one of the main dispute resolution means accessible to this sector. This is in general, but though, again, that decision of resorting to mediation rather to another mean has to be done very strategically, wisely from both the business and legal perspectives.
So thank you so much, Ahmed, for your invaluable input on this subject. This is the end of our first episode in this series, but please stay tuned for much more episodes and sessions on mediation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.